Just baseball show for Tuesday, May 6th. By the way, programming note, I think we're efforting Walker Buehler tomorrow, so we are going to have a Wednesday show. It'll be an interview with the Red Sox right-hander. But today, we got to talk about the ripple effect with a couple of things. Coby Mayo is back in the big leagues. What does that mean for the Baltimore Orioles? Triston Casas is on the shelf. What does that mean for the Boston Red Sox? Hyeseong Kim is in the big leagues. What does that mean for the LA Dodgers? Leody Taveras might not be in the big leagues in a week or so. What does that mean for the Texas Rangers? There are a whole bunch of things that we got to talk about here. And of course, it's always presented by the fine folks at BetMGM. Fun thing today, Tuesday and Wednesday, BetMGM is offering an MLB home run no sweat token. All you got to do, activate your token on an MLB home run bet. And if your bet comes up short, you'll get your stake back in bonus bets. So it's really a no sweat homer thing. Colby Olson texted me that he's got Wagaman here. What's your take here? Little
I'm
Tuesday homer, you got one?
I like the no sweat homers because even though like guys hit homers all the time, I just always feel like, oh, what are the odds that they're gonna hit a home run when I bet on them? The no sweat part's great, so I'm gonna throw it on somebody that I think I'll get some bang for my buck. I'm feeling a Ronnie Simon first career bomb coming up soon, so
I
that
love
might
that.
be one for me. But honestly, Coby Mayo, I think he's due for one too. So I'll be anytime I got a token, I might be dropping it on Mayo, knowing that he's gonna get his and it's gonna go far.
Fire me up for that. I'm not putting any wager down on anything baseball because guess what? I can't. But we've got a lot to talk about here. And Coby Mayo is the first one that I want to talk about. Coby Mayo was recalled by Baltimore. And, you could look at the AAA numbers and say, oh, yeah, Mayo is good. Yeah, just like he always is. Okay. Coby Mayo, so far this year with AAA Norfolk, is slashing as it stands right now. Through 28 games, he's hitting 252 with a 346 on base and an 523 slug. So that's an 869 OPS. He's got 15 extra base hits in 28 games. He's driven in 22, and he's walking a lot. So Mayo is up. He's 0 for 5 with a pair of punchouts in his first two games with the big club this year. But Coby Mayo last year, right, a 930 OPS in AAA. In 2023, between Double and AAA, this guy had a 973 OPS. He's done playing really well in the minor leagues. He's
Yes,
too
yeah.
good to be in the minor leagues.
Yeah.
I do like that Baltimore is making this move now, and hopefully he's here for the long haul. They need to get some stuff figured out, and Mayo can help them do that, no doubt.
Yeah. Without a doubt. I mean, this is an offense that's been slightly below league average, I believe, if you look at WRC plus. And I understand that there's still some questions defensively at third, and they have worked him into first base a lot more in AAA this year. So that is an interesting wrinkle, just to have that versatility. It's a long season. Things can shuffle around. But the clear cut, and I understand that the big deficiency for Baltimore is the pitching at this point, and they're going to need to figure that out. But until they figure that out, they're going to need to slug at a ridiculous pace. And a 98 WRC plus isn't bad, but it's not going to do it when your rotation is still in the position that it's in. And at the very least, you can look at the Orioles and say, well, there's potentially some internal reinforcements that could be coming, or guys that could get going a little bit better. We'll see. They definitely need to probably go make some outside acquisitions. But if you're trying to spark a ball club in general, great move to bring up the guy that has proven, as you mentioned, that he has nothing left to show in AAA. Even last year, as disastrous as it was in the big leagues, he was great in AAA. You could argue he was as good as he was before that in AAA. So it just was more of a factor for me of just him not getting the opportunity to get his feet wet and settle in, especially a guy that demolishes fastballs, does have some deficiencies with sliders, and you could say, well, that's a red flag for a guy that can have success in AAA and maybe not in the show. Sure, but he's also 6'4", like 220, and puts up plus EVs. So I think you can make a nice living crushing fastballs and mistakes at the very least. And heck, I think that's a guy that could jolt this lineup a little bit. The reality is he hasn't been given any runway. We're seeing Jackson Holiday just start to break through. Think about how many ABs he's had. Mayo is a high school guy. He did miss some time, I think in Double A with injury, and he hasn't had that final step yet to be able to develop here. And I'm glad they're doing it now. So look, if the team's struggling, keep them up there all year long and let them develop regardless of results. But I think even if things are going a little bit better, keep giving this guy runway because he could be an offensive force that pushes you over the top. It's not very often that you get to promote a guy that
Yeah.
has the capability of hitting 30 home runs.
Yeah, I'm totally with you. My problem is it's just kind of double backlogged. His promotion was double backlogged, and what I mean by that is on April 27th, Jordan Westbrook hit the shelf with a hamstring strain. Okay? On May 1st, Ramon Urias hit the shelf with a hamstring strain. If those two guys don't go down, Coby Mayo is still in Norfolk. So
Hmm.
for me, this isn't signaling from Mike Elias or Brandon Hyde, hey, we got to get our ass in gear. This
No.
for me is signaling, well, our injury situation at the major league level dictated that we call up one of the best prospects in the game. And I don't love that for a team that's 7 games under 500 right now and is not performing, just flat out in a bunch of different areas. So, like, it's funny because it's just an inherently positive thing when a top 40 prospect in baseball gets called up, but it almost skews negative here because they're doing it because Ramon Urias got hurt.
And he's already on the 40. It's like, oh, well, yeah, it's almost as if it was an org guy that was already, I guess an org guy wouldn't be on the 40, but if it was an up and down guy that was in Coby Mayo's position, they probably would have just brought him up too instead. It's not, hey, we need help. Let's spark this thing
Yeah, let's
and
get our
let's bring
guy.
Mayo up,
Like
which
as
it's a good
weird as it
point.
sounds, it almost doesn't feel like he's being looked at in the way that he should be being looked at. When you call a top prospect up, you should, and the fan base should look at this as, hey, we're getting a jolt. Like
Yeah.
this has an opportunity to give us a serious jolt. And this is like, well, Westberg and Arias are on the shelf, so
It
Mayo's
feels
here.
more next man up than let's try something different.
Yeah.
And I agree with that. And what's interesting is Westberg was off to a slow start this year, and I know he was banged up. I still think he's just such a solid player. It shouldn't
Right.
be too much of an issue. But what do you do then when Westberg, who has it's a strained hammy, wide range there, but like, what are you going to do then when Westberg comes back? Let's say Mayo is performing. What do you do?
I think you end up trading O'Hearn or Mountcastle, right?
I would imagine so, but O'Hearn has a 979 OPS. It's a smaller sample, but it's 95 plate appearances. Mountcastle, like that's the guy I look at. I think just how much longer are you going to do this thing? Like, and I understand you got to give him time to maybe pick it up a little bit because also if you're going to trade him, you're selling low at a 57 WRC plus
Yeah, but
so far
at
this season.
some point, when your goal is to win a World Series, and Baltimore's goal, like the way they've spoken, their goal is to win a World Series. At some point, do you say, you know what, we kind of have to put our best foot forward instead of waiting for a guy to reclaim some trade value?
And I think a somewhat, I don't want to get ahead of ourselves because you can hype up prospects too much, right? And like Ryan
But
Mountcastle.
you do. I
No,
never do.
you is by you I meant generally, and I meant more me. Um, yeah, Ryan Mountcastle in 2021 hit 33 bombs, right? So like, but it was an 0.8 at four. I guess what I'm getting at is like I want to say that I think a slightly disappointing, like a 40th percentile outcome for Coby Mayo is like a Ryan Mountcastle, but and that's probably fair and correct, but that he may not achieve that this year. So you could take a small step backwards if you assume that Mountcastle gets back to where he was last year, which is a 108 WRC plus and a 1.5 F4. Like there's a scenario where Mayo is getting his feet wet and through the process of development doesn't achieve that this year. So that would hurt your team a little bit in the short term. That's already, I don't want to say on life support because it's so early, but is in a position where it's getting late early. I still think I'd give it a shot.
Here's
I at this point, because I think it's also looking at it and saying, hey, the odds are starting to get stacked against us for this
Of
year
course.
even working out. If it works out, I'd rather it be with the future in mind and
Yeah.
develop Mayo going into next year as well. Whereas, Mountcastle, you're just going to ride that wave this year and then you're 100% going to open the door then at that point for Mayo anyways, or move him, which I think it's more going to be opening the door for Mayo because I don't think this team is good enough for you to justify trading Mayo for pitching because
Yeah.
that's the only other way that it would make sense. But now, if you trade 6 years of control of Coby Mayo for an arm that can't rescue your brutal pitching staff,
Yeah.
then you may even be hurting yourself even more.
Right. I'm totally with you there. The thing that I brought up yesterday on the weekend roundup was the age-old cliche, you can't win a division in April, but you can lose a division in April. I think the Orioles got close to losing a division in April. So I'm with you. Eyes on the future make a lot of sense there. I I don't know. This offseason, it would have made some sense to me if they did move Mayo for a blue chip pitcher.
Yeah,
Like if
no doubt.
Coby Mayo was pretty much the only piece going back to Seattle in a Luis Castillo deal, that would have made all the sense in the world to me. But right now, Grayson Rodriguez just got transferred to the 60-day injured list. And Charlie Morton made a relief appearance on Sunday. So let's kind of look at Baltimore and hope that they look at themselves in the mirror right now and say, okay, it's time to have some eyes on 2026. And I
Yeah.
think that that's Mayo right now, and I think that that's Basayo by the trade deadline.
And to be clear too, that doesn't even necessarily mean you're waving the white flag, right? Like you still have a lineup of Mullins who's having maybe the best start to a season of his career. Gunnar Henderson's gonna be better. He started banged up. Adley is already actually starting to pick it up a little bit. Holiday looks like he's breaking out to a degree now over the last couple weeks, and hopefully he can keep rolling that way. So like then you're going to get back a Westberg and Kauser. How about Colton freaking Kauser? Like that's another guy that can really jolt this lineup. Tyler O'Neill, I'm not factoring into this because
Neck inflammation.
come on, like we. I mean, I don't want to pile on, but the thing that I look at from there is just it's not like you're waving a white flag. It's just saying, hey, let's get our young guys some run and see what we've got here anyways, because we're probably not going to trade them in a season where we're fighting uphill to get back into the hunt. So, I think Mayo is the only guy that, like you said, you could maybe justify being perhaps expendable going into the year because of the situation for some pitching. But now where you're at, I think you play that guy, see what you got, and go from there, and just hope that things get better, from within to a degree. And then maybe you can go make an acquisition, go make a move for a pitcher if you want, but it's not going to be that blue chip, prospect kind of trade that you never wanted to make anyways if you're Mike Elias. So why even bother now? I think just give Mayo the run, and perhaps by the time these guys come back, Mountcastle shows enough life where they can move them.
Best foot forward by the end of the year. What does that lineup look like?
It's tough because I think O'Hearn looks good, man.
Yeah,
Because I
so
want
I mean, factor O'Hearn into this thing. I'm factoring O'Hearn in at first base. So I look at Adley and Basayo in some sort of timeshare.
that's the hard part with the timeshare though, because then it's like who's DHing, who's playing first, who's playing third.
So you're thinking best foot forward with eyes on the future is both Mountcastle and O'Hearn out of the situation?
Yes, even though short term, like again, as the season's on, you're trying to
Life
turn it
support.
around. I don't want to say life support just
Yeah,
yet, but as
we can go pretty far.
O'Hearn's got to stay up there. But I guess in a sense where it's okay, this season's over. I think it's trading O'Hearn, getting a nice return for him potentially, trading Mountcastle, assuming he regains some value, and then yeah, having a timeshare of Adley and Basayo, of course skewing towards Adley, but Basayo still catching a couple times a week. He could DH or play some first. Mayo playing some first and DHing as well.
Yeah, that's probably what it looks like. And then you hold Mullins. Do you look to retain Mullins?
I,
The way
I
he's swinging it right now and the way that Baltimore has loved him over the last handful of years, I would think that there's a world where they look to retain Mullins. I know they love Bradfield, but how close is he if you're trying to win a World Series in 2026 with a healthy staff?
Yeah, it'd be interesting. Like you QO him, and then
Definitely quality. Yeah,
he he could
qualifying.
take it. He could take it, but maybe not. Then yeah, it would be really interesting to see how they go about it. Because the problem is they didn't give Tyler O'Neill a 1 year deal. Like
Yeah, yeah.
he ain't going anywhere for a couple years. So it's interesting. And then Cowser could play a little bit of center, but I wonder how much more money they're going to want to allocate to the outfield when for whatever reason, they haven't allocated that much money to the pitching side. And someone might come around and give Mullins 4 years. And after they just gave what 3 to O'Neill, I wonder if they would do it. I think in terms of what is the best move, I think you should keep your true center fielder who's a great clubhouse guy by all accounts and a big part of what they've built there in terms of just being some of the continuity. But the way that they operate, I don't know.
Yeah, we'll see how it all shakes out here, man. But going to another team in the American League East, Boston Red Sox got dealt a very tough blow. Triston Casas is out for the year. He tore his patellar tendon in his knee. He's done. Abraham Toro was the corresponding move. He had his contract selected from AAA Worcester. That feels like a band-aid. I don't know what this lineup is going to look like in 2 weeks. And I think in 2 weeks we could be talking about Roman Anthony making his major league debut. They just have to figure out what the puzzle looks like. We'll start with Casas right now, and then we'll talk about the plan of attack moving forward for the Boston Red Sox. This sucks
It
for a
sucks.
guy who is so immensely talented. This is back-to-back years where he has been limited to so few games at the major league level.
It's been a theme since he was in the minors, too. And it was mostly like smaller nagging stuff. This is like the first, really, really serious. Obviously last year was quite painful with it was oblique, right? That he just shredded last year.
I
That
think
that
so.
took him a long time.
A
What was this?
rib strain, that's what it was
Rib
called.
strain, yeah. But you haven't had like that catastrophic guaranteed season ender yet, and it sucks because he works hard and he
Yeah,
does a lot of things to take care of his body and be in a good spot, but just sometimes there's things go wrong. It also sucks because he was off to a slow start this year, and you just, as you said, like he's so immensely talented. Even with the bad start to the season, my perspective hadn't necessarily changed on him too much. I still think this is a guy that can hit 30 plus bombs and be a 140 WRC plus guy and just mash. The interesting thing, and I'm curious what you think about this, is very anecdotal. Is there anything more dangerous to you than the jog into a oh shit sprint than like I don't know. I feel like I've seen more injuries like that in baseball than anything else. Because like he was kind of jogging down the line,
yeah.
and then it was, oh, he's bobbling the ball. Let me kick it into gear, and then that's where he got hurt. I'm trying to think of other instances, but like I know I've made a mental note of this through the years where like sometimes when you are going at a moderate pace and then you try to kick it into gear and make that last little lunge, that's where things can go kind of wonky, and I feel like that's where it happened. Like so many injuries happen when you're making that lunge at first base to try to beat it out.
Yeah, I think the change of pace is something that
Yeah.
really hurts athletes in general. Like I just watched what last week, 2 weeks ago, Damian Lillard try the change of pace and the change of direction real quick, and the Achilles went. Like that
Hmm.
was a really hard one to watch. Now, granted, Dame was kind of standing still and he tried going hard at the outset. That's a different sport. Typically, where I feel like we see this is out of the box, where you're on a dead sprint out of the box from stationary. But again, like this is just a slightly subdued version of that, where you are going from 0 to 5 miles an hour to 15 miles an hour. You're trying to really kick it into high gear and you're trying to shift into five when you're sitting in two. Like we're
Yeah.
skipping three and four. And that's the worry there. I'd be really curious to chat with an athletic trainer with a major league baseball team to say, hey, where do you get concerned? Because obviously that was kind of a hot button topic a couple years ago with the White Sox when they told their guys to, kind of jog into first base. You got to be around. Eloy Jimenez, like, don't sprint right now. Luis
Yeah.
Robert, don't sprint. Yohan Moncada, don't sprint. And everybody out here was like the baseball purists out there, me included, were like, how can you do that? How can you do that with a guy like Casas? I want him in the batter's box. I don't need him
Yeah.
sprinting to first base.
Well, and if you're gonna sprint the whole way. If
Yeah.
you're gonna
Yeah.
jog the whole way. As weird as that sounds, because I do think because it's also timing and footing and everything. So like you're jogging, then you kick it into gear, and then you try to go and lunge at the end, and that's where that happens. But sometimes it's just fluky things, and again, it sucks because he was hitting the ball pretty hard still. I thought there were some good ABs that he was starting to piece together, and you started to see some signs of life. And I think he's a big part of this team, obviously. So, and I know that they were dangling him at points and whatever, and who knows how much validity there was to all of that. But beyond that, it's just when you look at this team, yes, they've got a lot of bats at a lot of different spots, but I think he was one player where you're like, if he makes that leap this year, this offense can be up there with just about anybody. Now, if you look at it from the Red Sox perspective, and again, Casas, good news is 25 years old. He's going to work his butt off to get back, and sounds like he'll be good to go for spring training. So, looking forward to him bouncing back and being a big part of the team next year. You look at the Red Sox now. You mentioned getting Roman involved. How rare though, like you lose an exciting young bat and you can plug in potentially a more exciting young bat. And I don't even mean to say that as an indictment on Casas, who I again
No.
still think could be an all-star. It's just Roman could be a superstar. But as you allude to, how do you get Roman Anthony into the fold here? Because it doesn't seem like that's going to be the immediate plan.
No, and we're going to try and figure that out right now. Abraham Toro is the immediate plan, and Toro can play some first base, and that's why Toro was the immediate plan. But when Anthony is ready, and when they feel like they can get him up there and maybe not lose that pick because we're past the PPI deadline, then we'll see Roman. There's nothing left for him to prove in the minor leagues. Like Roman Anthony is ready for the major leagues. It's just a matter of getting there. And again, on the weekend roundup yesterday, Peter asked me, because they're a 500 team, the Boston Red Sox right now are a 500 team. He said, how do you ingest the Red Sox right now? How do you look at them? And I was like, I can't give you a fair assessment of the Boston Red Sox until Roman Anthony's in the fold. And he tried making fun of me. He was like, that's the most call up thing ever. You're saying you can't assess a team until a prospect's in the fold. It's like, okay, prospect, I understand the dig, but this is the number one prospect in baseball. He has the ability to change the dynamic of this lineup
For sure.
entirely. So how do you get him in the lineup? And that is when I feel like we can get our fair assessment of the 2025 Boston Red Sox when the number one prospect in baseball, according to justbaseball.com, is in the fold. So the way that I did it, Toro can be a bench bat. Got no problem with that. I think it's time Rafaela becomes a bench utility piece. So Rafaela moves to a bench hybrid role. It would be Wong and Narvaez as the catching tandem. Devers at first is going to happen soon. I think Devers at first is going to happen now. Bregman at third, Campbell at second, Story at short. And then I think it can be Duran in left, Anthony in center, Willier in right.
Or Duran
Or
in center. Duran in center, I think I would go.
Duran in center, Anthony
Yeah.
in left, Willier in right.
Yeah, that's what I would do. Just because
Or,
Duran is so good up the middle, man. Like it's pretty
sure.
underrated.
And like I'm kind of factoring in Yoshida to the DH spot. As it stands right now, with Yoshida out at the moment, and I saw him try playing catch and he kind of called it off this weekend. That was really tough to watch as well. As it stands right now, the DH spot is open, so you could very well go Duran in left, Rafaela in center, Abreu in right, and have Roman DH for the
Hmm.
time being.
Yeah, and I
I,
honestly like as weird as it sounds, and I don't want to speak for Roman, but I actually this would be a great question to ask one of the next players we have on. Like you're making your MLB debut and you're a bat first guy,
yeah,
like no matter what. Even if you take pride in your defense, would it be almost easier to just DH out of the gate so you can just really lock in on your at bats and your preparation? Or would it be harder because it's taking you out of what you're used to? I wouldn't ask Rafael Devers this question, obviously, but just somebody else. I'm curious. But even just filtering through that, I think, of course, you want to get out there because then the first game you get out there, if it's like a weekend your MLB debut, you may be like, oh shit, the game's fast now.
yeah,
But being able to even just filter through the DH, I think could help a lot
yeah.
and keep guys available. I think that's got to be the way to do it. And Devers apparently doesn't like DHing anyways. I know he's warmed up to it, but playing first base for him, I think that ultimately ends up making all the sense in the world. And if they had moved Casas, isn't this what it was going to look like potentially
Yeah.
anyways?
Yes.
So, and I don't think you're like, yes, Rafael is a special defender, but go look at what Duran was doing in the outfield last year, up the middle,
He
like
was a seven
outs
win
above
player
average.
last year, 6.5, 7 win player.
DRS was there. You put Anthony in the other corner, he's going to be good. Willier is fantastic in the other corner, and you still have Rafaela as this plug and play guy that you can put in different spots. And I do ultimately think that's the best foot forward, but there's multiple justifications not to rush that. One, you get more reps for Rafaela. In the meantime, maybe you can pick up the offense a little bit, and then two, you ensure that Roman Anthony does not win Rookie of the Year because,
Because he could come up right now and win Rookie of the Year.
and I
Jacob
know his
Wilson's going to
teammate
make
his
it
teammates in the
really, really
way.
hard. Yeah.
Who else would be a threat? Jacob Wilson and his teammate.
Jacob Wilson would make this very hard for Roman to win Rookie of the Year, but Roman could absolutely finish second.
It's also a really long season, man. Like, and Jacob Wilson's aggressive, and he could go a little cold for a little bit. And the thing with Wilson is he's got to hit 340. Roman could just run into a hot stretch of home runs and walk a lot, and all of a sudden we're looking at very similar WRC pluses here. So, you have a full WAR head start from Wilson, so it's hard. But I could understand the Red Sox saying, and I don't agree with this. I would love to have Roman up. I say I don't agree with it. I don't agree with it from the chair and the microphone. I
Yeah.
would probably do the same thing if I was a general manager.
Yeah.
So, like, I would want to be pretty sure that Roman Anthony can't go God mode
Yeah.
and win that AL Rookie of the Year. Like we saw with Skeens, the fact that Skeens dethroned Jackson Merrill with
Yes.
his late start is outrageous. That doesn't happen in almost any other year ever.
Yeah, and it's a little different now. Roman is the number one prospect in baseball, but he also like isn't Skeens. You know what I mean? Like you think
Of
Roman
course.
comes up and has an 1,000 OPS. I think what Skeens did last year was the hitter equivalent to what Skeens did last year is Yordan Alvarez when he won Rookie of the Year. Like come up,
Yeah.
have an 1,000 OPS, hit 30 homers in 5 months.
My counter argument would be that Jacob Wilson is not Jackson Merrill.
Sure, sure.
So, like, I agree. I think it would be really freaking hard to do, but like, why not wait a few more weeks to make sure?
Yeah, there's a clear three-horse race right now, and it's Wilson, Christian Campbell, Roman's Red Sox teammate, who also has about a WAR head start, like a one WAR head start
Hmm.
on Roman, and then Dominguez. I think Roman can bunny hop Jason Dominguez
Yeah.
pretty easily,
Yeah.
but Wilson and Campbell, like they got that 10-second head start. The question is Roman beat the freeze? And he might be on May
Good.
5th. On May
Good.
25th, he might not be. We'll see.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm fascinated by that wrinkle. And again, for those who may not know, like if he wins Rookie of the Year, even with the late start, then he earns a full year service time. So the Red Sox would, I mean, a full year of control of Paul Skeens, like with the Pirates lost there, and a full year of control of Roman Anthony for it disproportionately affects the Pirates because clearly I don't think anyone's expecting them to extend Skeens. But, in a world where the Red Sox probably want to be able to extend Roman Anthony, I don't think those conversations will be had until Roman knows exactly how many years of control he'll have. So that pre-arb extension probably wouldn't even come or those conversations going further until Roman knows he's not winning Rookie of the Year because then you know how many years are leveraged against you of team control.
Yes. So it's a really interesting dynamic, and I'm curious to see how Craig Breslow and Alex Cora put together the jigsaw puzzle to get the number one prospect in baseball in there. And if I were a betting man, I think it would be Devers at first,
Yep.
and Roman kind of gets that soft launch into the big leagues as the designated hitter.
And do not put Roman at first base. Please stop. I've seen
No,
that
no,
floated.
stop doing that. He can play center. Why would you put a guy that can play center at first base?
No, no. For short-term gains. And Breswell even said it doesn't make sense long-term for either of our guys, both Marcelo Meyer and Roman Anthony.
Correct. Okay. We are going to talk about the Rangers. Yikes. In a moment. Before that, quick break. Texas Rangers. They're in quite the conundrum right now. They just fired their hitting coach and they placed Leody Taveras on waivers. He can still play throughout this waiver process, but teams can claim him. They would owe him the entirety of the remaining money on his deal in 2024. I think it would be just under $4 million. If he does clear these waivers, he can be outrighted. He can decline the outright assignment to minor league baseball and
He won't.
become a free agent, but he would forfeit $3.8 million. So he would not do that. Leody Taveras is either going to be on another team or he's going to be in AAA Round Rock at a certain point. And this follows Jake Berger going to AAA. This follows Evan Carter as well. Dude, what's going on with the Rangers, man?
I don't know. So 'cause it just seems like so many different circumstances, and that's why like I feel like it's a little bit of a scapegoat situation here with firing the hitting coach because I mean, is it his fault that 33-year-old Jock Peterson after a phenomenal year can't get it right? I don't know if that's his fault. Like, is he supposed to have Marcus Semien swinging it well at 34, 35? Maybe there's more things, behind closed doors that I don't know about. But like Wyatt Langford's doing great. And that's usually the guys that I'd want to see my hitting coach, yeah, helping get prepared. Josh Smith, after a great start to the year last year and a horrible finish to the year, now looks great again. Like that guy settled in. Jonah Heim has bounced back and looks pretty good. I wonder like where you what the expectations are and what you're looking for out of a hitting coach. And I guess again, it's more about what's happening behind closed doors and that whole process. But
Yeah.
if you just look at it from a statistical output perspective, like the veterans are the ones that aren't performing. Whether it's a guy that was brought in from outside or a Corey Seager who's been a little bit banged up, he's been performing when he's been on the field. He's been good.
Yeah.
But a Jock, a Semyon, an Adolis who now hasn't hit for a while. Whose fault is that? A guy that you traded for, right? Like Jake Berger, I love him. I think he's an awesome dude and a great clubhouse guy that I know was probably advocated for by Skip Schumacher, who's in the fold now there in that front office. But like that's the guy you traded for who has been very hot and cold. You had to be prepared to ride the wave there. Evan Carter, I think it's a back thing. So that's where to me, I'm just wondering like how much of the onus is on the hitting coach and how much of that is just kind of a figurative, let's get a new face in here.
I don't know. And I'm just looking at team wide approach, right? When you look at runs scored, they are 29th in Major League Baseball in runs scored. That's the biggest one that you assess a hitting coach on, right? Team OPS, the only teams that have a lower team OPS than the Texas Rangers at this point. They are one of four teams in Major League Baseball with a sub 650 team OPS. Only three lower than them are the Pirates, the White Sox, and the Rockies. You can make the argument those are the three worst teams in Major League Baseball this year. The number that jumps out to me that could be the biggest indictment, they've walked 82 times this year. That's the 29th most in baseball. Like that is the second fewest walks drawn in Major League Baseball. The only team that's drawn fewer walks is the LA Angels, and they're 10 shy of the third fewest in Kansas
Yeah, that
City.
that that supports the preparation and
Yeah.
yeah, just approach in general, team approach argument against the hitting coach. So
Right.
that is a good rebuttal.
Like if the walks aren't there, and I understand walks aren't sexy, I understand walks are not the end all be all, but they're not hitting homers at the rate that they should. They're not getting on base at the rate that they should. They're not slugging at the rate that they should. Like at some point it comes down to approach.
Yeah.
And that's like the one thing that should stay somewhat consistent on a team-wide basis.
Mhm.
Individuals can go through ebbs and flows with their approach, right? They can expand over the course of 2 weeks and then they can, hone in the approach again and get it back. It's a very abstract concept, and I know that you've talked approach with plenty of pro hitters, and it's something that it's like you can't wake up and just do the New York Times crossword and then you feel like your approach is good here. Like it is such an abstract thing to take a hold of, and there's no clear cut way for a guy to do it. It's like, oh yeah, no, I did my eye work exercises and
Yeah.
we're good
No,
now. It's
it's
not a thing, but in terms of a team, you should have some consistency. And if the approach of the first month of the season has been consistently bad, that's when you start to look above the roster.
yeah, that totally makes sense. And I will say like it's when it comes to approach, it's a team wide thing. But I think in order to do it successfully, right, to have your team top to bottom making good swing decisions, you have to, as you mentioned, like kind of holistically approach it, right? What are your strengths? What are your deficiencies? How are teams going to attack you? And then how can you eliminate some things in that process so that you can spit on tough pitches and then capitalize on the mistakes or the pitches in the area that you feel like you can do damage on. But like an approach for one guy is going to be different than another guy because they're getting pitched to differently and they're going to see different sequencing and different types of offerings and things like that. So yeah, it is interesting when you see a Jock Peterson walking, 5% less than he did last year. But again, those are the guys though that I do look at it and say, okay, well, how much of that is on the hitting coach? But when it is top to bottom, and I guess when you have several vets that are struggling to get right, then maybe you just think somebody else has to come in here and shake things up. And it's fascinating though because I do think for Carter, like that is definitely an injury related thing. You didn't trade for Jake Berger for walks,
No.
that's for sure. But historically, several of these other guys have had better approaches and have gotten on base at a better clip. So I imagine that may have been, a big wrinkle in this thing. So I'm interested to see. I think it was probably more of that proactive, like we need to shake something up here
Yeah, no, I
and
mean, you send a message by firing a coordinator. You know, like it's the football thing. It's the college football NFL thing where it's like, hey, our offense hasn't been good the last 6 weeks. Here goes the running backs coach. You know what I mean? Like okay, time to get right. Here goes the O-line coach. We
Yeah.
allowed 6 sacks last week.
Yeah.
I think that's what's going on. We already saw Colorado fire their hitting coach this year. They brought in Clint Hurdle. That we
Yeah.
saw the Yankees fire Dylan Lawson what last year and bring in Sean Casey to do that. Like
Yeah, that was crazy.
sometimes it's just signaling to a roster. It's like, yeah, we're making changes around
Yeah.
here.
Yeah. And just shaking it up. The last thing I'll mention too is we had some questions actually in the Discord about Evan Carter. Like looks like the numbers are okay. Like, what do you think's going on there overall? And I was looking at the quality of contact, and he just doesn't look fully like himself just yet. And I don't know if they're working on just different mechanics to kind of get him right or whatever that may be. But if it isn't as much physical, like that's a guy that definitely it would be an indictment on the hitting infrastructure there, where you have a young kid get up, just absolutely take the league by storm. League adjusts to him, and then he was hurt, but then like can't quite get it back. That's where I want my hitting coach to say, "Hey, this is what you did well. Like this is how you get back here." So
Yeah.
again, it could be injury related, but I'm not totally sure. We'll see. I think there's clearly just also the fact that they put Leody Taveras on waivers to me is like, I'm not saying he's the problem and he's just sucking the joy out of this team, but I think they wanted to change some things around. Blaine Krim gets up. Like they wanted some new blood. So I'm
Yeah.
interested to see that and just where things go from there. But at the same time, like I don't know if I'm panicking on this offense yet. I don't know about you, but I don't think I'm going to panic on this offense just yet.
No, I'm not yet. And another reason that I'm not panicking on this offense is because I'm not panicking on the team in the macro. At the end of the day, they have the second best starter ERA in baseball. Like their starters are throwing to a very low threes ERA. And you just look at the individuals. Tyler Mahle, we talked about, he has a 1.19 ERA through 7 starts. Eovaldi through 7 starts has a 2.11. DeGrom through 7 starts has a 2.61. Then you look at Pat Corbin, who has a horseshoe up his eye. Like I don't know what's going on with Pat Corbin, but you know what? It's cool, and I'm bought in on this. And then you look at the bullpen too. They addressed the bullpen and they got better. Hobie Milner has been good. Robert Garcia has been great. There are options here. Chris Martin has been good for them as well. He's punched out 18 and walked 3 in 15 and 2/3. Their pitching is keeping them afloat. And what we learned about the Rangers in 2023 is they are the streakiest team in baseball. Even in a year where they win the World Series, there were months where they were unstoppable offensively. And there were months where I was like, is this a postseason team?
Yeah.
And guess what? At the end of the year, they won the World Series.
Yeah. Yeah. And look, they're going to be aggressive. They're going to make some moves and additions here. And Justin Foskey's swinging it again. I know he was terrible at the end of last year, but he's 26. That's another guy you can bring up, see what he can do. 874 OPS. I know they're trying it with Blaine Krim right now. Ezekiel Duran is just way too good for AAA. So I know he wasn't great out of the gate in the big leagues, but you have different internal options to keep trying, and then you hope that Evan Carter can get there and help you. But they've got trade chips too. I think ultimately, I don't know. Would you have taken this scenario if I told you before the season, hey, a month in, the offense is going to be catastrophically bad for what you were expecting. You're even going to fire the hitting coach, but the pitching is going to be the best case scenario on the starting rotation side, where DeGrom is back. You have a 3.09 starting pitching ERA, which is second in Major League Baseball. Would you take that and say, hey, I'll roll the dice on the offense getting right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think I would too.
Absolutely.
Because also it's a lot easier to address that offense, I think, if they needed to. And I think they can piece together a deal if they wanted to add another bat when that point comes. But that pitching is going to keep them afloat, and the division for the most part should be pretty wide open.
I just don't know if they're going to need to add a bat, to be totally honest with you. Like, to your point, I think that this offense, as is, could just get hot on May 10th, and we could be looking at them, and it's full steam ahead. And when they do the whole World Series DVD thing, you have the quote from the pundit that's saying, hey, this offense stunk through the first
Yeah,
5 weeks of the season.
yeah. I could talk to you all day about these like free flowing like conversations here. Just one more thing I wanted to mention though is the one area where I may disagree is Adolis Garcia's spot, because I just wonder like
You're just
what
not in on that?
what is he at this point?
Megamind. Have you seen his head?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, have you seen his 2024 and now it starts at 2023 or five numbers?
Yeah, I have no idea what's going on.
if he is still playing poorly, I think that's the area where you can address is the corner outfield, and that's a really easy position to address.
That's just crazy that we're talking about Adolis Garcia like this. I thought he was a top 10 outfielder in baseball going into 24.
And maybe he'll get hot. When he's hot, he's ridiculous. So, but I just that's the one area I'm looking at, and I'm like,
Yeah.
there, or you address first base, and that's another position where it's pretty easy, I think, to find a bat that can carry their weight.
Yep. All right. Last team that we got to talk about is the LA Dodgers. And there is a transaction. Tommy Edman hit the 10-day injured list. He's got ankle inflammation. Corresponding move was Hyeseong Kim making his major league debut. Hyeseong Kim has already flexed his muscles on the base paths against
Mhm.
Atlanta. He comes to Miami now. Kim will likely make his first major league start on Monday. So by the time you're listening to this, he'll have his big league start and he'll have his first major league start under his belt. He's really fast.
Yeah.
He's exciting. Where are the red flags with Hyeseong Kim, who was acquired from the KBO?
I don't know if there's like a full-fledged red flag. I just think he, you get excited about international prospects, especially guys that get multi-year deals. And it's not like he got paid like crazy or anything,
It
but
was 3 for 12 and a half.
he looks like a player that signed for three for 12 and a half, I guess.
Okay.
Is just, and I guess maybe in my mind, and just when you hear about it, it's like, oh, they're bringing up another guy, an international guy that put up big numbers, in his respective league before. But he looks like a guy that would sign for 3 years, 12 and a half. And by that, I just mean solid utility, can motor, can do little things, but I don't think you're going to get a ton from the bat here. And just seeing what we were seeing in the PCL, where you'd imagine he'd be, and I know it's his first taste of ball stateside and a lot of just human element adjustments to it,
Yeah.
but there's just been more swing and miss than I expected. A little bit more chase, a little bit more swing and miss. Not egregious, but for a guy of that archetype, you expect it to be kind of more bat to ball, maybe a little bit more patience. It's slightly aggressive, not recognizing spin great, and eh, fringy contact rates. So, or like close to average contact rates. I think it's going to be speed and defense mostly for this guy, and that's fine. That's all they need him to do. But I just wanted to remind people, like, especially because I think when it's the Dodgers, it's they're bringing up another guy from overseas. He's gonna just take the
Yeah.
league by storm. I think this is a solid role player who may not even be fully ready to consistently fill that role. Like I wouldn't be surprised if when they have their guys back, if he kind of slides back down to AAA and continues to develop. I think this is a development plan a little bit more for him.
So through 26 games in AAA, he had a 107 WRC plus and he had 13 bags, 5 homers and 13 bags in 26 games. But Kim, he made a lot of sense as the corresponding move for Edman. If Edman is only out just 2 weeks, you don't think they would just carry him as a bench bat? I am curious with their financial obligations to guys like Chris Taylor, what they do here. The Dodger bench is really interesting to me. And I made the point to you before we hit the record button. I think this is the best lineup I've ever seen. It's amazing. And with what Andy Pages is doing at the bottom of the lineup, extending that, I'm just
Oh my
absolutely
gosh.
floored by this lineup 1 through 9. Max Muncy's been brutal, but he's still Max Muncy. He had an 850 OPS. All of these guys, Conforto's been brutal. I know that's still Michael Conforto. Like, this is a murderer's row type of
Yeah.
lineup. Peter tried making the case to me that he likes the Cubs lineup more than the Dodgers. I
Oh
just don't
God.
think you can do that. I think that was
Stop.
edgelord stuff from him.
Stop.
So I don't know. I look at Hyeseong Kim and I say, why can't you be a bench piece and be that
Yeah.
late game defensive substitution? Now, I don't even know where he subs in here when Edman comes back, as Edman is an amazing defensive second baseman. But like Kim on this bench makes a lot of
Yeah.
sense. It's just surplus with Kike and Rojas and Chris Taylor, and I just found it a little weird that they paid all three of those guys. But I understand the benefit of having them in that clubhouse.
Yeah, especially Kike.
Yeah. Like
But
Kike makes the most sense to me, to be honest.
I
Miguel
remember
Rojas.
Walker. I remember how excited Walker was when they brought him
Oh
back.
yeah.
It's
Oh
like,
yeah.
okay, that makes
To,
sense.
to be honest, the one that makes minimal sense to me, and I understand they need him because he's another shortstop option, but like 5.5 for Miguel Rojas? Like,
Yeah.
really?
Yeah, I think that's probably one spot where, maybe they even shop him around, because I do think that ultimately Sun Kim gives you more value here, because you don't really have that speedy guy for you. I don't know what Chris Taylor's turning in run times wise at this point anymore, but and I think Chris Taylor must be Hall of Fame dude. I don't know him personally or anything like that. I haven't really that he still can run a little bit too, by the way. He's still 76 percentile in sprint speed, but he's so close to 10-year service. I think the Dodgers are genuinely just trying to do right by him and trying to get him as close to that as possible. But at a certain point, it's like, okay, what do we do here? I'm interested to see because if it really is not about keeping Taylor around, if you're just looking at a pure baseball standpoint, 100% even Hyeseong Kim, who is still developing, is a better option in that bench speed up defensive utility role, I think, than a Chris Taylor. But I wonder how much of the value is to the fact that Chris Taylor can plug into the outfield as well,
Yeah.
and how much that actually matters for what they're doing. But at the same time, Hyeseong Kim's been playing some center field, and I think for a reason. He's been playing mostly second base and shortstop, but all of a sudden they've had him playing some center field too, probably to eventually take over that Chris Taylor role at some point this season.
I would think so. And Edman obviously can take over that Chris Taylor role, and Kim can be more comfortable. Like Edman can play everywhere. And if Edman is on the roster, this guy can do literally everything. But in terms of center field, I love that Andy Pages has shut down the Luis Robert thing. And we talked about this on the call up, actually. I want to take this conversation over to the Just Baseball show. Um, we talk about all this optionality. It would be cool if they had a mainstay in center. And this year we were going into it saying, maybe the mainstay in center is in the minor leagues. Maybe the mainstay in center is a trade acquisition. Maybe it's Luis Robert at some point, whether it was the offseason or beginning of the year, maybe even the deadline. They have their mainstay in center now. This guy's disgusting. And he started slowly, but Andy Pages, as it stands right now, is an 820 OPS. They found their guy, and he's accomplishing the near impossible thing to accomplish. He's a prospect that is cracking through the Dodger lineup. As a
Yeah.
Dodger or Yankee, it is impossible. And you either have to be Jason Dominguez, or you have to be Will Smith, or you have to be Cody Bellinger. And I'm not saying that Pages is Cody Bellinger. Like he's not winning an MVP. But this guy has cracked through and he looks like an everyday center fielder for the LA Dodgers.
Because on this team, he doesn't need to be an MVP, right? He just needs to be
Doesn't
a
need
really
to.
nice complementary piece who can, play a premium position. And the fact that he's developed into what he has as a center fielder, I think is huge too. Because I mean, you can go back and look at scouting write-ups too. Everybody wanted to move him off a center, and that was one that you and I had talked about it too. We're like, he can play at least an average center.
Yeah.
But there was a lot of people that were kind of ready to move him off of center field. He's playing an above average center field. So I know he's worked hard on that side of it. And then he's just turned himself into a really well-rounded hitter. The fact that he can pull the ball in the air with the consistency that he has while making, I would say close to plus contact rates, producing that is just a really sound profile on top of the fact that he can stick in center field now and play at an above average level. So you got to be thrilled with the development of Pages if you're the Dodgers. And it's easy to forget that this guy's 24 years old and he's going to be 24 for the entirety of the season.
He's really good. He's very young. Last year, 116 games at a 1.3 F WAR. This year, 31 games at a 1.2 WAR. So he could equal his season in WAR last year this week in Miami. Like, that is so cool. And this guy's developing. And I mean, James Outman, his rookie year, was what, a 4.5 win player?
Yeah, I think something like that.
Why couldn't Andy Pages be a 4 win player this year?
I think it's very, very possible, especially if he's playing center field. I have actually one more funny thing for you too. I was a 4-1 player. Um, guess who played left field again yesterday?
For the Dodgers?
Technically, in the organization.
Oh, rushing.
Yeah, I remember when they said that they were done with that like 2 weeks ago,
Yeah.
or like really it was like a month and a half ago. And then I was just reading an article, I think from MLB Pipeline, about like, oh, the Dodgers are, yeah, Dalton Rushing is blocked, but the Dodgers have a plan. And then I didn't really understand what necessarily the plan was because it was like, oh, we want to develop him as a catcher and whatever. Here's the last 4 games: first base, catcher, first base, left field. Can Ford? Yeah, I don't know how much that matters anymore now. It's crazy how things can change in like 3 weeks.
Yeah.
I'm fascinated because Conforto looks kind of lost up there.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying like cut bait, it's so early, but he might be a guy that benefits from being optioned and working on some things if he accepts that assignment.
Yeah,
And
it would be tough to see him accepted because he's making so much money.
yeah, and that's the tough part. But he's been bad,
Yeah.
and rushing with how good he's just continued to be. I mean, he's just mashing still again in AAA and just getting hotter and hotter and hotter each time you check in, chasing at a 10% clip, by the way.
Yeah.
At what point do you start to think about that too? And clearly they're thinking about it a little bit if
Yeah.
Rushing's playing a little left.
Yeah.
At what point does that become not thinking about it and become like a serious conversation? How long does Michael Conforto have to be bad,
I
and how bad?
Another month.
Yeah.
He's got a negative 0.5 WAR at this point, and they are in first place again.
Yeah.
They
And he's also
have,
making 17 M's.
I know, it's $17 million. They're still in first place. I don't think that you can really broach that topic for another month.
I think probably longer. And even then, you're not. What are you just gonna? You're just gonna relegate him to a bench role, if
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah.
And it's him and Rushing are both lefties, so it would be a weird spot. So I think Rushing's gonna have to look a lot better in left field quickly, though he has looked all right, and he's gonna have to just absolutely mash to the point where it's like you're the Dodgers. You just throw your hands up and say, "Well, he has 1,000 OPS and he's playing left field. Okay, what do you want us to do?"
Yeah.
Like we're trying to repeat,
Yeah.
and I think that can happen.
Yeah. It could totally happen, especially in that league. It could totally happen. So, Dodgers have a great problem on their hands, and they've got a new second baseman in Hyeseong Kim for the immediate future. So, that's the Just Baseball show today. You got anything else for us?
No, F1 was cool. It was
Yeah.
cool.
Okay.
Um, like it definitely is the least sporting event, and I'm not belittling the sport itself. It's just like all you're gonna see is just zoom, 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 and then you watch it on a monitor, and then it's just all about like you're fit and like just being seen and social media, and it's very much a social spectacle, is it not?
It is, but I kind of think that it's funny because, like, you got the glitz and the glam of F1, and we talk about baseball where people just go in like a t-shirt and shorts and eat a hot dog and have 4 beers.
Yeah, I mean that's the disconnect for me, I think.
Yeah.
And it's a very fascinating spectacle. It's really cool to see the cars and everything.
Yeah.
I just, from a viewing standpoint, it's a long day to just see zoom, zoom, zoom,
Yeah.
and then you look at the monitor, and
Did you get an $150 t-shirt? I walked into one of those
it,
F1.
it was $150. Of course not.
I went to the US Grand Prix in Austin last year to like a practice session. I was just down there with my roommates for a Texas football game, and we were like, "Oh, let's go to a practice session. This will be cool." And we just walked into one of those pop-up gift shops, $90 hats and $150 t-shirts. It's like this is totally just a class sport.
Yep. Yeah, I felt like I was golfing and I wasn't even golfing. Like
Yeah.
because I'm always a little bit anxious when I'm golfing that I'm doing something that's not proper etiquette, so I'm
Yeah.
always on edge. Just felt like am I walking properly? Like, am I doing
No.
things right?
No.
No, probably not. But it was cool.
Did
I
you
will
wear
say.
shorts?
Did I order shorts?
Did you wear shorts?
Oh, did I wear shorts? I was like, was that a specific thing there? Yeah, I did wear
Yeah,
shorts.
you shouldn't have done that.
God,
Breach of etiquette.
it's the same thing as being credentialed, right? You gotta rock it a specific way. It was hot. Also, the last thing, there's a few different things. I wish I thought about it more of just like crazy things that I took away that just like blew my mind about it. But I'll come back to the table with that later on. I forgot what I was gonna say already, but the traffic was a nightmare because the course actually goes into like parts of the highway. So like that
Yeah.
part was kind of nuts.
Yeah.
But no, it was a cool experience. I'm glad I did it, I would say.
Tough weekend to be the turnpike. It isn't 95, right? It's the turnpike.
It kind of goes over 95. I think it might be the turnpike. I don't know. I don't know, but I am glad, everyone is so upset with Stephen Ross and the fact that he can't lead the Dolphins to a playoff victory since I've been born in 1997. And I know he hasn't owned the team the whole time. I think he owned it since 2013. But you get Miami Open in F1, right? Isn't that worth it? Isn't that worth a horrible football team?
That's kind of a win. I
Yeah,
think it
yeah,
is.
great. I don't think so, but it's okay.
Ouch. All right. Everything you need is in the episode description. We will chat with Red Sox right-hander Walker Buehler
Hmm.
tomorrow. Talk to you guys then.